Welcome to JMW's Inside Man YouTube channel. David Smith is a partner at JMW's London office and specialises in data protection law. So I believe that there's been a new decision, but over in Europe in relation to data protection. What exactly has happened, David?
So the European Union's top court, which is the European Court of Justice, which clearly is not a court that immediately impacts on the UK anymore. We've left the EU, as we all know. Has obviously it has a role in deciding sort of very fundamental top-end data protection questions as data protection law. The GDPR works across all of the EU, and the summary is it's made a decision about a case involving Österreichische Post, which is the Austrian postal network. Now, like increasingly most postal networks across Europe, it is in fact privatized, and they do lots of other things. And one of the big things they do is effectively a data collection and sale business. So they collect data about people, much like, I don't know, Experian or companies we'd be familiar with here in the UK, and they sell it to advertisers. They also use that to profile and infer information about people. And in this case, what they've done is they'd actually inferred that an individual, and presumably a number of people, had particular political affiliations with different political parties. So what is commonly happens in these situations is you create a profile, and you might have 40 or 50 profiles, and you slot people into one or more of those profiles, and then you essentially sell. Someone who wants to market a product will pick a profile that they think connects with their product, and will obtain all the names of the people with that profile, and will then contact them. So one of their profiles basically blocked people up into particular political party that they might support. An individual who was in that profile group objected to this. Now, they hadn't actually told anybody or sold any information about his political party. He just generally objected to the fact that he was affiliated with this political party. So presumably he didn't like the party very much. And he then took a claim on the basis that it breached his data protection rights and it caused him emotional distress, and he wanted compensation. And this is where it gets interesting. One of the things that's never been abundantly clear in the GDPR is, if I breach GDPR, does that mean automatically that the people involved are entitled to compensation? And what the European Court of Justice said is, no, they're not. A breach of GDPR is one thing, and you shouldn't do it. But the right to civil compensation only occurs if you've actually suffered in some way. Now, that could be emotional distress, but that's not fully decided by the European Court of Justice. They send that back down. But their clear inference here is that being linked to a political party, but no one being told about it, is not actually causing you a great deal of distress. So what's relevant about this decision is there's a very clear statement from the European Court of Justice that simply breaching the GDPR does not automatically entitle people to claim compensation.
And so what does this mean for businesses in this country? We've all heard of Article 2 and material damage and non-material damage, but what does it really mean?
So this is the interesting point. Of course, at one level, it means nothing, because the European Court of Justice has nothing to do with the UK anymore. But it's nowhere near that simple. Of course, the GDPR as we apply it here and the GDPR as it's applied in the EU are still very similar. And you know, you'd be ridiculous if you thought that the UK courts don't have at least half an idea of what the European Court of Justice is saying. And in fact, it mirrors a move that has been taking place in the UK courts. So there's been an increasing problem, especially for businesses where very trivial data breaches are uncovered. They get a whole load of nuisance claims, basically, for a few £100 each, pursued often by claims farmers or even by individuals. And the High Court, where these have come before the High Court, has tended to say, well, hang on a minute, we're not giving you any money. This is ridiculous. And so it shows that the High Court and the European Court of Justice are actually moving in step. And the point really here is that these kind of nuisance claims are that. They are nuisance claims. And just because there is a minor breach of the GDPR, it does not mean that people are automatically entitled to compensation. They have to actually demonstrate some degree of suffering. Now, that could be emotional if they feel that if they have genuine belief their data has been lost, they're at risk. But where it's something trivial, so it's a minor data breach, like an email address perhaps has been promulgated to a small number of people, or where it's something like this, where an affiliation is being created internally, but no one else knows about it, then it's pretty unlikely that they'll be entitled to compensation. So what it's really doing is starting to put a bit of a lid on the sort of slight explosion of compensation that had occurred under the GDPR. And that's quite interesting at a point when the government, of course, in the UK is looking to amend UK data protection law further to make it simpler for business. But what it also shows is that courts are also determined not to let the GDPR go totally out of control, both here and in the EU, and to keep a sort of a reasonable level of control to make it effective for business.
And how can you and the data protection team help businesses, David?
So we have a really quite strong data protection team, both in our London and Manchester offices, covering a whole range of issues, right through from general advisory work about how people set up their data protection, doing data protection policies and things like that, right through to dealing with claims and complaints and action and subject access requests and all those areas. So we can really help across the whole sweep of data protection, right through from setting up your business structure and your data structure, through to where it's all gone wrong and people are trying to see you left, right, and centre.
I'm Dominic Walker, JMW's Inside Man.